Time for world politics, and there's a lot going on the political landscape. We'll see who joins us on this particular day, if anyone. But definitely, there's a lot taking place on the political landscape, both in the nation and on the world scene. The Justice Department has asked for a one-day sentence for ex-officer convicted in the Breonna Taylor case. So Breonna Taylor's family is saying that they're feeling heartbroken over the federal sentencing recommendation. So the U.S. is seeking a one-day prison for the officer convicted in the Breonna Taylor shooting and all along those lines. So that is something that is here in the area and all along that kind of way. And a looming Epstein vote has Republicans eager to leave Washington. So Ron Wyden is a Democrat who won't let go of the Jeffrey Epstein case either. So Senate GOP blocked a resolution demanding Trump release the Epstein files. And Mike Pence says the time has come to release the Epstein files. And he actually said that on yesterday and all along those lines. And the Senate Judiciary advances the email above Third Circuit nomination and all along those lines. So the Trump administration has got this case going on with the Judiciary Committee. The Senate Judiciary Committee Republicans advanced the nomination of former Trump lawyer Email Bove as Democrats walk out. So there's apparently some cases where the Democrats are walking out and cases where the Republicans are walking out. So there's definitely contention on Capitol Hill. And White House says Trump won't recommend special prosecutor in Epstein case. So the White House is defending its handling of the Epstein files and chides the press for their coverage of what's going on with Epstein. Says Trump on NBC said he's not interested in naming a special counsel for the Jeffrey Epstein case. And that was reported by the White House press secretary and others as well. And Russia looks like it's tightening its stranglehold on Ukraine battlefield as Trump gifts Putin that 50-day window. So Trump tries to rewrite history on being fooled by Putin. So it looks like there is some notion that Russia even is unfazed by Trump's Ukraine war ultimatum. So we'll see if this is the case or not. And in Oregon, ICE arrested a chiropractor outside his kids' Beaverton preschool. So ICE arrested an Oregon chiropractor as he was dropping off his child at that preschool and all along those lines. So that is something that folks are talking about as well. And an ex-wife and four others were arrested in the murder of a UC Berkeley professor in Greece, according to some sources in that area and all along those lines. And Senator Nicole Mitchell testifies in her own defense in a burglary trial. So she addressed the black attire and the sock-covered flashlight during an alleged break-in. So definitely we'll see how this goes, as even the Minnesota Reformer is saying police made several missteps in their case against Senator Nicole Mitchell, according to what testimony is showing and all along those lines. So that's just something in the U.S. We'll see what's going on in world politics, since it is the World Politics Show and everything like that. A prominent Israel rabbis, I should say, back intervention in Syria on behalf of the Druze. And the U.S. is very concerned as Israel strikes Syria's capital, Damascus, amid government clashes with the Druze minorities. So that is something that folks are talking about as well. And Israel strikes a Gaza church, killing 3 and wounding priest who was close to the late Pope. Israel says the deadly Gaza church strike was a mistake after the call that they got from President Trump. And that's something that's going on in the Middle East and all along those lines. And the U.S. is diverting the Patriot systems from Switzerland to Ukraine. Zelensky says he wants half Ukraine weapons to be produced domestically, and the Patriot deliveries to Ukraine ramping up and others being delayed. So this is all some of the things that are going on in that Ukraine-Russia conflict that has been going on for multiple years now and all along those lines. And I know that we'll hear an update further on that from Sasha on the Ukraine-Russia-China show on tomorrow. And Ukraine targets Moscow as Russia reports shooting down more than 140 drones. So that's something that folks are talking about as well. And of course, there is outrage from Eswatini not Trump's dumping ground, outrage over arrival of foreign U.S. deportees in that tiny African nation, and all along those lines. Eswatani says it will repatriate migrants deported by the Trump administration. So it looks like Trump launches his next round of third country deportations with new flights to Eswatini. And Puerto Rico is banning hormone therapy and gender surgery for trans people under the age of 21. So Puerto Rican law criminalizes hormone therapy and gender affirming surgery for transgender people under the age of 21. So that is something that folks are talking about as well. And of course, there is conversation about the UK and Germany treaty and all along those lines. So that's just some of the things that are taking place on the global side of things. And I'm going to bring in my two Canadian friends and see what they've got going on in their world. We've got John, and we've also got Sasha Starr with us and everything like that. So how are you doing, gentlemen, doing and everything? By the way, what is the age range for Canada in terms of voting? Because I did see earlier today that it looks like London is going to start, or England, I should say, is going to start allowing people to vote as early as 16. And I wonder what that would have done for the Trump's victory this year if the young teenagers had been allowed to vote and everything like that. Because I was actually having a conversation with a friend of mine who's running for mayor here in the city that I live in, Durham, North Carolina. And she was actually thinking it might have been good for her campaign if those young people were able to vote, which they won't be able to vote since it's still the age that it is here in North America and everything like that. But they looks like they're going for 16, and that will be starting in their next election. So what is it in Canada, and what is your thoughts about teenagers being allowed to vote at the age of 16?
It's 18 for Canada.
Okay, and that's what it is around here. So they're going to let them go younger and everything in the UK. Any thoughts around that, Sasha?
I don't know. That's not something what occupies my mind a lot lately.
That makes sense. I can understand that. I know one thing that occupies your mind regularly, and it's one of the things you oftentimes talk about, and I know you'll be talking about it tomorrow as well, is what's going on in Israel. It looks like there is conflicts between now Israel and Syria and the Jewish minorities and things like that. So what is your take on what's going on in Israel and now pulling Syria into the conversation as well?
I think Israel is okay. It's a superpower in that region of the world. Nobody can touch it. And that's how it's going to be in the next 175 years.
Yeah. Well, I know one of the things that Nick talks about is the South American countries that are having human rights violations and everything. So with its U.S. funding cut, rights groups and civil rights groups are apparently fleeing Bukele's, and that's the leader, El Salvador. So things like a lot of journalists and human rights leaders are fleeing El Salvador because they feel that they might not be able to get the support that they were getting, say, from the Biden administration and other administrations. So what is
Why
your
would
take?
somebody worry about some rights violation in Salvador when there are a lot of human rights violations right here in the United States? Why
Right.
don't you worry about this rather than Salvador or what else?
Well, the show is called World Politics. I try to bring in different parts of the world, whether it's Malaysia or Salvador or a number of other places. But yeah, you're right. A lot of violations, even here in the United States and everything like that. So, Rick, any thoughts on this, guys?
Yeah, we have more people in prison, both per capita and in absolute numbers, than any other country in the world, which is freaking crazy because some countries have 4 times our population, and one of them, China, is a full-on dictatorship. That we outdo China in locking people up just seems nutty.
Yep, that is downletting and everything. One of the stories that I saw, Sasha, that involved Russia and everything was there is some notion that India may still be able to get oil from Russia, even if Russian imports are sanctioned. So India, I guess, was saying earlier today that they can secure oil even if Russia imports are sanctioned. So I don't know if they're going to do like an end around and get them from other sources or how they're going to do it, but definitely they're even saying that there's a coalition against double standards, and that's what India said on NATO's Russia trade warning and everything like that. So I guess they're trying to, the NATO countries are trying to get India not to be involved with trade with Russia and everything like that. So, what is your take?
I feel like, and Sasha knows better than me probably, the whole world is an oil end around. The tankers, are owned by shadowy, they go, there's so much sneakiness in that whole industry, right, Sasha?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you by far the very, very interesting thing which I just uncovered. Apparently, so U.S. Puts on all kind of tariffs around the world, and they want to be in control of everything and get its tariffs paid by somebody else. I've just uncovered very interesting thing. You can buy a Chevrolet these days, a Chevrolet Avia, I think that's the name of the car, that gets you 48 miles per gallon, and that costs only $17,000. The only problem is you cannot buy it in the United States. You can buy it in Mexico. And you know where this car is being made? In China.
In China, right?
So Mexicans are driving very cheap cars, which provide a good savings, 48 miles per gallon. I think it's quite awesome. And United States have nothing of that. China and Mexico are benefiting, and U.S. is not there.
Yeah. In China, you can buy a sweet little electric car for like 10 grand.
Yeah.
And it's got a bunch of, gizmos in it. It's not like it's primitive at all. We did a lot of our fucked up politics are screwing us technologically.
Well, even in terms of day-to-day costs, because apparently, and this happened, it was reported by Reuters about an hour ago, that the oil jumped $1 after further drone attacks on the Iraq oil fields and everything like that. So I guess these attacks on the oil fields are causing the cost of gas to go up or oil to go up because of those being OPEC nations and everything like that, even though there's plenty, from what I've been told, and that's even what President Trump apparently said, of oil that is here in the North American area. But I haven't heard any efforts to actually tap into that oil, whether it's Alaska or whether it's some of the other places. But what have you heard, Rick? Because that was one.
Go to Sasha first, because Sasha understands stuff, and all I do is like read about stuff and half understand it.
So what's the question?
The oil going up, and are we doing anything? Because one of the things that President Trump said he was going to do was do research and develop the oil reserves that exist in the United States, whether that's in Alaska, whether that's in other parts of the United States. But we're already in the month of July.
Yeah, okay. Now I do have an answer. Trump is not the president of oil. Oil companies do what they want to maximize profits. Right. And oil is actually down a little bit under Trump, because the oil companies want it that way. In California, we always get screwed by the refiners. They will shut down plants for so-called maintenance, but it's really because they did the math, and they can make more money by selling less gas for higher prices and then hold on to the excess oil. But ask Sasha. The oil companies run their own games.
Yeah, and that's even what Kim has said, because she's been to, apparently, I know she's dealing with her own health issues, but I know she's been to a couple of those oil summits and everything like that. That's what CERAWeek is supposed to be and everything like that, where apparently they tell all kinds of trade secrets, is what she said a couple of times on this network and all along those lines. But what those secrets are and how much they actually reveal, only her and some of the other people, like I don't think Homer Stone has gone, but I do know that Rex has gone to a couple of them, and they have reported on some of the things that they have learned in the past on this network and everything like that. So we'll find out more, because I think it should be coming up in the fall of this year, if I remember it correctly. But she would know that better than I would.
Mark, I think a lot of people are quite intelligent here to understand that oil is a commodity.
Mhm.
Nobody can predict, nobody can corner this market. It's so huge. So therefore, it's a simple law of supply and demand. And it's nothing to do with Trump. Okay, you can do certain things to affect prices to some degree, but very little. You cannot do it. It's only if OPEC countries and the US and Canada and many, many other countries will agree to some kind of moves that would either make oil much cheaper or much more expensive. But that's never happening. It's too. It's all conspiracy theories and all other stuff.
So the oil company, now that I think about it, reminds me a little bit of De Beers, the diamond company.
Mhm.
De Beers, now diamonds are kind of trash. You can find them in all, like some gems, rubies, emeralds. You can only find them in certain. They're actually rare.
Mm.
Diamonds are all over the world, but De Beers managed to hold on to a monopoly to control the market for 100 years using vicious trade practices. But what is finally causing it huge problems is now that anybody with a lab, anybody who can afford some machinery for maybe 200 grand, can make diamonds of any size with perfect purity for
Yeah.
1% of the cost of mining a diamond.
But Rick, wasn't that part of the problem, not just with diamonds, but also with coal here in North America and a number of other places, was that it was putting human lives at risk? Because I do remember that whole notion of the blood diamonds and everything, because they were saying that a lot of people were
Well,
using
the
their life
guys
in
who
order for people to get the benefits from diamonds.
the guys who currently own the coal companies are assholes. They don't particularly, there are only 50,000 coal miners left in America. Oil. I mean, coal is on the way out, no matter what Trump may say. And so the coal companies did what they could to keep, and are doing what they can to keep themselves afloat, but it's a declining industry. Now oil is way huger and more important. I think it's still the world's #1 energy source, but the oil companies look to the future. When people get more and more pissed at them, when it becomes less and less acceptable to burn oil like crazy, uh, when alternate energies, fission, fusion, solar, wind, become cheaper. So the oil companies play a short game to maximize profits, and they also look to the long game to see how they can survive into a future that will be increasingly annoyed with them.
Speaking of people being annoyed with things along those lines, and this is from both you, Rick, and Sasha, and I've brought it up on other past shows. I've got friends that, and I think that there's even some on this network. I think that Jim E says he owns one, but I definitely have friends here that own Teslas, and they have to go to the charging stations and everything like that. And sometimes they are closer together than they used to be, and sometimes they're farther apart. But there is this notion that at some point there may be more charging stations than there are gas stations if we have more people driving electric vehicles than we have driving the old-fashioned gasoline cars. I mean, it's kind of like moving from horse and buggy to gas and then gas to electricity. So do you think that will ever happen, either one of you? And is there any notion that eventually the BPs and the Exxons and the other gas stations will be more obsolete?
I don't see too many electric cars being driven. Even, for example, when I was in Spain, 5 days, I saw only one electric car in all that time. Here in Canada, among my friends, no one has an electric car. Even younger people, like my daughter and her friends, no one is driving electric cars. So I really don't know what it's all about. Hybrids probably have better chance, but purely electric car, which only can be driven by using the battery and nothing else, I think that there is no future.
But I mean, we live in the era. The whole the last 70 years has kind of been the era of, there are 280 million cars in America. That's one car for every adult. And that won't go on forever. That because most of your car sits doing nothing for 22 and a half hours a day if you're lucky, if you've got a short commute. And people, and it's a huge expense. And in the future, I believe that there will be different schemes where people will own vehicles together, that there will be, vehicles on demand, where we're starting to see that now. And maybe we won't shift entirely over to electric, but what will happen is the number of cars per capita will continue to decline. 50 years from now, 80 years from now, instead of one car per American, there will be 0.6 cars per American, because we'll have better car sharing schemes.
That makes sense. And everything, and there's even car sharing companies that are out there now that allow you to go pick up a car and drive it around and then return it back to wherever you picked it up from, and all along those lines. And not just like the Ubers as a list, but like actually car sharing kind of companies like you're talking about. And I can't think of the names of them right now off the top of my head. I was having this conversation earlier with a friend of mine that's running for a local political office and all along those lines. But how do y'all feel? Because we talked about it before, Rick, about this notion of the work environment. Will more people be going and staying at work? Because I know there's been this push for both globally and nationally to get people to come back into the office. But a lot of people are comfortable working from home and everything. And it seems like we're going to be in this hybrid mix from now until the end of time and everything, where a lot of people will be spending most of their time at work in home and everything, because they'll be working from the home.
Mark, could you stick more to international politics, please?
I just said that was a issue that is both here, because even in where Nick is at in Spain, he's talked about the fact that there have been people that have been doing this on a international stages as well. There's even some companies in some parts of the world where they don't even have the work hours that we do.
Okay, so let's talk about international versus the U.S. So let's talk about it. The U.S., we get tricked into working our asses off compared to the rest of the world.
Right.
Canada, Europe, Europe, a lot of countries have 32-hour work weeks, 30-hour weeks. Nick will tell you a month of paid vacation in the summer, 4, 5, 6 other weeks of paid vacation, a year of paid maternity leave. The U.S., like, corporations own and brainwash American workers to think that we have to work our asses off all the time. Productivity around the world has increased 5.5-fold since frickin' World War II. We get done in 2 hours of work what used to take 11 hours in the 1940s. But American workers don't reap much of the benefits of that, because we are a very corporate culture where we are fooled into thinking that we have to work our asses off. Sasha, John, Jatovi?
There is nothing really to discuss. It's coming on the U.S. The slavery of workers is coming back from 150 years ago, when well before the more liberal times, and the trade unions and all that stuff. But even now, people are who learn nothing else but working for somebody else in the factories and so on. They don't know anything better. They're all scared for their job, and rightly so, because with AI, most of the jobs will be obsolete anyway. So they're happy to work 40, 60, 80 hours a day for a miserable salary just to survive. What can you do about it?
And one reason is because we are geographically fairly isolated, and we isolate ourselves. We get very little news about other countries relative to what other countries like Europe, the US, a third of a billion people, a country that's 3,000 miles wide. Europe, a bunch of countries that are 60 to 70 million people that are, I don't know, 600, 800 miles wide. If you live in France, you have to know what's going on with your neighbors. England, the whole EU, they're all well informed about, if you live in Germany, you know what kind of vacation hours people in France get. We don't know shit about that.
Agreed.
And there is a reason to that, because the less you know, the easier it's to manipulate you. That's
Yeah,
right.
here in Canada, we get a mix of European and American culture, and mostly American culture, but we are more obviously progressive, more liberal. We do get paid. My wife, when we had our twins, she could work. She could not work for a full year if she was working for a company that's across Canada. So, yeah.
And speaking of John, speaking of that, and I mentioned that in the story earlier, since anybody can bring up any topic that they want to, because that's what world politics is and everything. But I did say that Eswatini, which is a very small country in Africa, apparently is going to send back or repatriate the migrants that got deported to them, because the migrants were coming from Jamaica, Cuba, and other countries that were not from that African nation. And they are very upset because they're saying they're not going to be Trump's dumping ground and everything like that. So what is our take on this notion of folks being deported, whether it's to the Alcatraz island that is being in Florida, or being deported to a whole other country where they were not from, even if
it's all theater of cruelty. A lot of people voted for Trump because he was going to be mean to people who aren't them. And yeah, but here's an international story. The UK has said that 16 and 17-year-olds will be added to the vote.
And I brought that up at the beginning.
Okay, sorry, I was eating.
But I mean, definitely continue the conversation. That's what I wanted people to.
Well, I mean, it's hard to imagine. Like, I think 18-year-olds got the vote under Nixon, right. And it's hard to imagine that today's Republicans would ever want to expand the vote. Because 16 and 17-year-olds would likely vote in the majority Democratic, unless the Republicans had a scheme where they won over the young bros in 2024 via Rogan and other social media and podcasts. But there are plenty of people who could be offered the expanded vote. People younger than 18, Puerto Rico, Washington, D.C. could become a state, but the Republicans have a stake in not expanding voting rights and expanding the country, because they're demographically smaller, and they only win by putting their thumb on the scales.
And maybe Jacoby's got some thoughts around this as well, but during the campaign of the Trump campaign, there was this whole notion, and even the campaign before, I want to say under Obama, of this otherism and kind of like labeling people as others and everything like that, and kind of like putting them in stereotypes. We're even running into that in our local politics, because another political candidate is getting in trouble for using the term YN and everything like that when describing our young people that are kind of part of the delinquent crowd and everything along those lines. So I just wanted y'all's takes around this notion of folks being otherized in whatever way, whether it's local or national or international. I don't know if you
I have a thought that anytime people get stupider, part of the stupid is to hate people who are different from themselves.
Right.
When you look at the biggest wave of hate, it was the world from the 20s until the end of World War II. We had the rise of fascism beginning in 1922 in Italy. And by the middle of World War II, there were probably 20 fascist countries in the world. We had a worldwide depression. We had the resurgence of the KKK. And I keep yammering about my theory, and I found out that other people think the same thing, that we had a huge flu epidemic that may have screwed up the brains of tens of millions of people around the world. giving them crap, made them stupider. And we just are coming off a pandemic, and plus we have social media, which makes us stupider. And part of the stupid is hate.
Yep, that part is stupid for sure along those lines. So that's definitely something that people are always concerned about, and everything along those lines in that space and in that way. Hey, Sasha, I know one of the things that you've been going to be talking about on the news tomorrow and on your show is this notion of what's going on in Ukraine and with Ukraine and Russia. But it seems like Zelensky has said he wants the Ukrainians to produce their weapons domestically. Is there enough of a kind of like system to make that happen? So is there enough factories?
First of all, they're already producing for quite a while a lot of weapons domestically. Plus, there are new ventures, joint ventures with the Western countries such as Germany, UK, even some United States companies now very interested to have joint ventures in a drone production and technologies. So that's developing. And actually, it's very interesting that Ukrainians, when they are liquidating Russian targets, they're working in small units, let's say 5 people. So they have a competition who will destroy more targets. And whoever gets destroying, for example, a tank, it's so many points. A person, it's number of points or so on. So by the end of the day, whoever gets more points is becoming a winner and gets special prize. So the Ukrainians are doing extremely smart things. And one a Ukrainian commentator, he of Ukrainian army. So he said, a year, even 2 years ago, he said that don't worry about territory. You will get your territory. Worry about how to kill as many Russian soldiers as possible. That's your goal. Because more Russians you will kill, the easier and faster you will get back your territory.
So I got a question for both Jatovy and Sasha.
Yeah.
So the coming of drones, it seems like that's the biggest development in modern weaponry. And it seems like a good thing because people aren't flying, they're not in the drones. So people aren't, you shoot down a drone, you don't kill anybody. But it also seems like a bad thing because as drone technology improves, then you start getting science fiction shit like little fly-sized drones that can fly into your ear and blow up your head. So
wonderful. Why not to do it? Wonderful.
Because any asshole with access to that technology can blow up somebody's head. Jatovy, what do you think?
The problem with drone technology is we forget what's up under the drone when it explodes, because it still comes down crashing on people's heads. And we forget about that. But yes, what you're talking about is future technologies. Yes, drones are getting smaller. They have made a drone the size of a wasp, I think it is. So there's a lot of, Black Mirror had an episode about that. With the bees. So
yep. A swarm of bees is sicked on, and they're unstoppable because they can fit through anything. And if you're the target, you're done.
Well, if you don't attack your neighboring country, then probably you will not be subject to the attack of drones or bees or anything else. But if you choose to attack your neighbor, and your neighbor is in the possession of that new technology, well, it's too bad. It's a payback time, baby.
After just another discussion point, after the meeting this morning, I sent our good friend from Bangladesh the AI information I gathered. I sent it to him. He thanked me for it. Again, I was kind of confused as to his statement that he thinks the Trump administration is good for his country. I've been digging a little more deeply. Again, climate change is impacting Bangladesh very badly. with droughts, and that was actually one of the causes for the during the 1980s Bob Geldof's humanitarian celebrity musician for that country, and we have the good doctor defending Trump, and I again it baffles me. I have no idea as to. Yeah, go ahead.
So based on just the one article I read, Bangladesh can come out winning a little bit if they can make a deal for a lower tariff level than surrounding countries, because Bangladesh is set up to do things cheap. The labor costs there are cheap, and if they can come in pay with less of a tariff, right now I think it's at 35%, which sounds high, but if other India's maybe at 28%, you gotta like wheel and deal with Trump, who is can change his mind on a dime. But if they can come up, they can be competitive if they don't get screwed with. I mean, for orders from the U.S. if they don't get screwed, compared to other countries in East Asia.
They have to develop technology. They have to be able to sell their goods, whatever they are, to other countries, whether it's Europe or Asia or even Africa. They cannot depend on United States. It's impossible because the rules are changing, because one day it's one story, second day it's another story. Geographically, it's too far apart. It makes sense for Mexico and Canada trying to somehow deal with Trump, but even, and I'm not sure about Mexico, but Canada is more and more going sign deals with the European Union, with Japan, South Korea, and China, rather than US. So essentially all traffic between US and Canada will come to zero in the next 2-3 years.
So if Bangladesh can make a huge push in STEM, they can be competitive because they've got a big ass population. They got 171 million people, which it's half of what we have, but that's enough for them to develop a lot of stuff if they embrace technology, which I'm pretty sure they are. I mean, stereotypically, from India on east through East Asia, those people are, as nations, embrace tech, where the U.S. is like, we have half of our politics is about being distrustful of education and science. And
very interesting. I want to talk to you about what's happening with Canada and its ties to European Union. Interesting is that quite a while ago, both Canada and European Union nations, they decided to hit United States, and not just all the way, but those Republican states more than anything else. So the states which, for example, producing a lot of bourbon, states like probably Oklahoma, Tennessee, maybe Arkansas. So all these Republican states, they completely stop bourbon in Canada. If you want to go out and try to find anywhere any bourbon, you will never find it. It's forbidden for sale in Canada. And so it's happening in the European Union. So there will be a few more countries will join pretty soon. Japan, South Korea, just name it. So who will suffer the most? Republican states, which are producing a lot of bourbon. So they will drink as much as they can now, but there will be no sales outside of the United States. And it's not only bourbon, there are some other things that are going through the same thing. I'll tell you one thing. The Canada and European countries are not as vocal as Trump about what they are doing, But have you heard about any deal signed with the European Union so far? It's already 90 days gone. It's already 1st of August coming soon. Have you heard? Have you heard
No.
about any lineups of politicians to Mar-a-Lago to kiss somebody's behind, asking for forgiveness, asking for a deal, asking for anything? I never heard about it.
No.
Okay, so we'll see on August 4th. As you go, the strategy taco, Trump always chickens out. It's going to happen again on August 1st or a couple of days before that.
Okay. Oh, we are 3 days away from Trump's 6-month anniversary as president. And
Wow.
let's take a look. In 6 months, he has lost net approval. He's gone from plus 6% net approval to minus 5.5. So he's lost 11.5%, 11.5 points of net approval, which means if he continues to lose approval at that rate, by the time he leaves office, he'll be at 92%, negative 92% net approval. That means that, that would never happen, but that would mean that he'd have 96% of everybody hating him and 4% of everybody liking him.
Wow. Amazing.
He's definitely suffering in terms of his popularity and all along those lines. So, but there doesn't seem to be any push to try to get him out of office or anything along those lines. So I guess we're stuck with him for another 3.5 years, unfortunately.
We're not, because he was just diagnosed with chronic vascular insufficiency. So with the last 2 presidents, we've noticed that the White House has been reluctant to release medical information, only releases it when they're compelled to. Somebody has been taking a picture of Trump's ankles, and they look swollen. And today, the press secretary, Levitt, said that he's got chronic venous insufficiency, which is swollen ankles, basically, that the veins in his legs can't return enough of his blood to his heart. So actually, I've got the same thing. I've had the same thing because I have varicose veins, and I have to wear 3 pairs of socks, 2 pairs of pressure socks and 1 regular sock, just to keep my legs tight so I don't get that problem. Because if blood that sits in your legs gets beat up, it sits there, it doesn't go anywhere, and that blood is going to be more clumpy, and having clumpy blood can lead to dementia. If it gums up your brain, it can do a lot of shit. So I'm never without a ton of socks on to make sure that blood does not pool in my legs. The bottom of the foot end of my bed is 1.5 inches, 2 inches higher than the head end. So when I sleep, I'm emptying out my legs. Now, will Trump do any of that shit? I don't know. He may be too vain to want to wear old lady support stockings, which is what you need. Will somebody suggest that they jack up the end of his bed? I highly doubt it. So you say if that nothing can remove Trump from office. His medical condition, because this is the most benign explanation for what might be going on with him. And some people have suggested it's not just that. So, he may not make it another 3.5 years.
True. That might as well.
But if he's replaced with Vance is a whole different creepy kettle of fish, because Vance is owned by Peter Thiel and the tech bros, and tech bros have their own ideas of who should be in charge and what the future should be like. And it's not super democratic, some of these guys, right?
Well, by that time, first of all, the midterm election next year is extremely important because nobody will challenge Trump. It's impossible, so he will stay for the rest of his term, unless he will collapse and Vance would be president. But what's interesting is that the way things are now, Democrats can easily take the House and even challenge Republicans in the Senate. That's quite possible because if you take Trump's and overall the Republican Party, although I don't believe there is such, there is a Trump and all this little pygmies under him. What are his achievements in this 6 months anywhere in domestically, politically, economically? What do you think?
He's got one thing. He shut down the border.
Okay, yes, he's done that. What else?
Nothing else.
But you see, the border issue, okay, it's concerned about very few southern states, like states like North Dakota or Oregon or, I don't know, New Hampshire. They don't care, between you and me, about any of this issue, period, whatsoever. So, okay, so that's achievement. Okay, let's go.
And not all the southern, California is kind of a southern state. We have a southern border, and we, for the most part, California is cool with immigrants. You know, like, you know, they do a lot of jobs in the state, and, you know, they don't get paid highly, and, you know, and they're law abiding because they don't want to get kicked out. Like if you drive in LA and somebody's going 10 miles under the speed limit, you get around them and it's an immigrant because, yeah, they're keeping their nose clean. They do not want to get pulled over.
Absolutely. So in this respect, it's obvious that he's done quite poorly on immigration, not the closing the border, but on immigration. I've read statistics that Biden actually sent more out from the United States, more illegal immigrants than Trump. And this is puzzling. I couldn't actually verify that. How is it possible that Trump is talking so much about illegal immigrants and they're rapists and there's this and that, and Biden sent out more than Trump?
I don't think more, but roughly the same number, because Trump doesn't know how to do things. He doesn't appoint people. He doesn't know how to do things logistically. Even his own company, when he was running the Trump Corporation, in a normal day at the office, they had 4 people in there. He doesn't know how to run a big company. And Obama was the king of deportation, deporting twice as many per month. But Obama had huge help because it was the crash of 2008, and for a million undocumented immigrants were like, well, the economy here sucks, and I'm illegal, you know, and I have to watch my ass every minute to make sure I'm not exploited or arrested. I might, if the economy is going to suck here, I might as well go home to my own sucky economy in El Salvador. And so there was self-deportation that really goosed Obama's numbers. And but I haven't read enough. Maybe Obama had better logistics too, because he kicked out a ton of people.
Yeah, that's quite amazing about this. But again, this issue is not the most important issue, in my opinion, on American people's mind. I think the economy remains number one, and his economic record, because now you have to start talking about the tariffs and how tariffs will affect everything and everywhere. It remains to be seen, because I'm expecting that August, September economic data will show a slowdown in the U.S. And this is It's really scary. The market is going higher, especially after this fiasco on so-called Liberation Day of March, April 2nd. And you know what's happened after that. Stock market recovers, and but I cannot say the same about economy. The fact is that so many products of the United States will not be eligible to sell overseas or even in Canada. So that could affect not all economy, but at least many so-called Republican red states. That's
Yeah,
for sure.
well, inflation is coming. It's you can't like 1 month doesn't mean anything,
No.
but we're at 2.7 year over year for June. But looking at the tariffs, it's hard to believe that we will not start having inflation of 3% year over year and more, which Biden got a ton of crap for. It was one of the top two issues that didn't get him reelected, right?
Yeah. So this is also his international policies, and everything what he's doing is at the best questionable. Even his attacks on Iran questionable, because nobody can estimate exactly what damage was done. In the meantime, he never got decision of a Congress to do such raid, so he did it on his own authority, which I'm not sure even possible. But okay, with Trump, everything is possible, as we know. And finally, what's going to happen now with the so-called Epstein files? With Epstein files, nobody is going to sue Trump and put him in jail. No. It's all a question, in my opinion, about transparency of U.S. lawmakers trying to hide the real truth and the files actually from. I think it was handled absolutely incredibly in poor taste. All they had to do is, okay, here are the files, and there's such a huge public demand to produce files. And even from MAGA, even from Republicans, there's a huge demand that they want to see files. And this is in the human nature. If something exists, we would like to know. We are taxpayers. We are elected this particular president, and we want to know everything what pertains to him. So why it was handled so poorly? First, Bondi says that, okay, it's on my desk. It will be available in short order. Then she said that, you know what? There's nothing. I looked at the file, absolutely nothing. But still, she still didn't show them.
No, but he's inept, and he appointed inept people. So is Canada benefiting from the chaos here? Because I mean, basically, you're kind of the same country. You got more land than we do. You're adjacent to us. You've got the same language. You have the same industries. Are you picking up a lot of benefits from the U.S. sucking?
It's hard to say.
Well, what's your stock market doing?
It's fine. Fine. It's not spectacular market because it doesn't have stocks like Nvidia, for example, right? But it has quite a lot of natural resources stocks, especially gold and oil. So these stocks resources are doing quite well. High tech is doing well. Well, percentage-wise, I don't think that we can be close to Nasdaq or high flyers like Nvidia.
So, fellas, I know we're gonna have Russia, Ukraine, and China on tomorrow. We're actually gonna have to end early
Yeah.
because there's no Nick to back me up and everything. So I've got to get ready to do the other show at 6 o'clock and everything like that. So we're going to end a few minutes early and all along those lines. But we will definitely be back here tomorrow with World Edition. But it was a good discussion, and we'll have more discussions tomorrow, including on the.
Oh wait, I'm flying tomorrow, so I may not be here in the morning.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem.
Bye bye.
Bye. Thanks.